Thanks for joining us for the Executive Series. Today I'm speaking with Peter James, who is the Chairman of DroneShield. Peter, good to talk to you.
Hi Tom, it's good to be back.
It's been a while since we've last spoken, and since then you've had a pretty important development in terms of an important contract that you've won in relation to a Middle East security contract. Tell us a little bit more about this.
Yes Tom, I think we last caught up in December 2017, and certainly in that 6 months there's been a lot of good things happening within DroneShield. And as you say, we've just been awarded a major tender, certainly the largest in our history, with a major Middle Eastern defence ministry allied with the West. I can't actually name the name for security reasons, but that is $3.2 million, 70 of our drone gun tacticals, and as best as we can judge it, it is the largest order of its kind, the largest tender awarded of its kind in this very new industry. And as we talked about before, 2 years ago this was an industry that didn't exist. This wasn't a problem. 12 months ago it was an emerging problem, and that is tactical, off-the-shelf, commercially available drones used for bad purposes. 12 months ago an emerging problem, and today of course a real problem. So we're certainly very pleased with this order, but as I've said to you before, we have a large and growing pipeline, over $100 million of orders, which we're addressing at the moment, and this is the first one to drop. Particularly exciting.
Indeed. So you made the point about this being the largest tender of its size. It's important in that context to understand that you're essentially a private contractor that's operating in a historically defence contractor-oriented neighbourhood. That's an important validation of your concept, isn't it?
It certainly is, Tom, and we should understand that these are extensive, as a result of extensive field trials. So our people and our distributor network, and we've got over 60 distributors, as I said, in more than 50 countries, are at any time working with a number of military officials, and we are put through our paces through rigorous assessment. But it's not just military, and you know, we see examples of where commercial off-the-shelf drones are used for bad purposes, particularly in the Middle East, and I've talked to you before about that, but also in and around defending critical infrastructure, such as bridges, airports is a particular one these days, prisons, as we've discussed. Prison walls are really good for keeping bad people in. They're not so good for keeping drones with contraband, phones, keys, guns, whatever, out. But the other one that we're seeing that's really emerging as a use case is mass crowd protection. We've got large groups of people anywhere in the world coming together, such as the Olympic Games. More and more the authorities are coming to people like us for protection. So at any one time today, we're certainly working with governments, with military, with the big systems integrator, the defence primes who sell into this, and that's another market for us, but also with the law enforcement and security contractors who support mass crowd events, prisons, etc.
Now, you spoke about your sales force. It's worth noting that within that group, you've been able to access some pretty high levels of government and the like, as noted in this last Middle Eastern contract. How important is that in the discussions that you're having?
Look, it's fundamentally important. Tom, as I said to you, the first thing is it's about excellence of the product, and no matter how good your sales team, no matter how hard they work and your contacts, the product itself has got to work under the most rigorous of conditions. And I've seen it deployed often in thunderstorms, in cold weather. It works down to minus a lot of degrees in hot weather. So firstly, the equipment has to be fit for purpose. But then you've got a small company. We're only 12 people. The first multiplier we've got, as I said, is our 60 distributors, and they're specialists in our field and defence and security related. We've then got our sales team, and as I mentioned, many of those come from ex-military, ex-security, so they're familiar with this space and know their way around. And then we've got our board and our advisory board, many of whom are very familiar with the political mechanism, with governments, and in particular with security and with defence. So it's a whole combination, and I'd say with a strong overlay of hard work and technical excellence.
Now, Peter, it's one thing to sell a device, regardless of what it is, but it's also really important as a supplier of that device to have something that creates a revenue stream around it. Tell us about the potential in terms of drones.
Well, we're certainly looking at an upswell, and I can talk about the 2 years since we listed, Tom, and if I pick some recent examples, and this is only since you and I last talked, we worked extensively with the French government, the French military, on behalf of NATO, and they asked us to do some redesign work on our drone gun. The original drone gun had a backpack and a big battery in that. We, on behalf of the French, released a drone gun tactical, which is lighter, 6 kilos, has a range of 1 kilometre versus the original equipment at a range of 2 kilometres. And the French loved it so much that it was deployed in some evaluation by the French earlier this year. And then all of a sudden we started seeing viral photographs of the French press where they picked up President Emmanuel Macron with his Chief of Staff, his generals, and the Minister for Defence actually holding and examining our drone guns. So, you know, working with people like the French and getting great reviews. We're now in further evaluation with the French. We've set up a hub in Europe, working with NATO. So we see a large interest, and in the last couple of weeks we've had people in Tallinn in Estonia doing demos. We've had people in Spain with both the Spanish forces and the Spanish police. We've been working with the French, as I said, and next week the team's off to Norway. So, you know, a real upswell in Europe, starting with the French. In the Americas, we have done extensive field trials with the US Marines, again on behalf of the US military. Then if we come home, and the list is extensive, closer to home we announced a month or two ago that we were chosen to defend the Winter Olympics in Pyeongchang in Korea. Now again, that was the result of a lot of hard work with the South Korean military on behalf of the Winter Olympics, and then we were deployed in Pyeongchang. And again, our equipment is broad ranging. We detect and we defeat. So we not only detect the drones, but we defeat them. Closer to home, we were chosen to protect the Commonwealth Games by the Queensland Police, but again after extensive review by the Australian Defence Forces. We then had ASEAN. When ASEAN was on in Sydney, DroneShield was there with the Australian Defence Forces on behalf of the New South Wales Police protecting ASEAN. And I must say that we've had great support from the Australian military, the Australian government. We are a member of Team Defence Australia. That's a small group of selected Australian companies who get the support of the Defence Department to appear in trade shows, on stands in London, in DC, in the last few months in France, and also in Kuala Lumpur, and great support from Austrade as well. And I must say Minister Pyne has paid particular attention to DroneShield and has been a great support. So a lot of opportunity, a lot of growth in a very short amount of time.
So Peter, it sounds like there are a lot of pieces that are slowly moving to coalesce to form like an important critical mass. Where do you see the tipping point as being?
Look, I firmly believe that this recent order, $3.2 million, the first major one of its kind, when I look at that pipeline right around the globe and how close we are, you never know. They're major tenders, major decisions, and they're very formal. But I do believe that recent order is a tipping point. If I look at the next, say, 6 to 12 months for us, Tom, the last 6 months has been extremely busy globally. Firstly, we are a fast-moving tech company. So you can always expect evolution of our equipment based upon feedback from the market. The next interesting one we've announced before, and I've talked to you about it, we had appointed a global financial services company, Mesero, to act as our corporate advisors, because we're getting a lot of attention from the big primes, the big defence companies, who are seeing what we're doing and thinking perhaps this is a way for them to get into the market. That whole corporate advisory space is moving ahead for us. And then finally, and quite profoundly, capitalising on the long pipeline that we've got and just starting to deliver on the opportunities that are there, led of course by this recent activity in the Middle East.
It's a fascinating space, Peter, to watch this sort of technology, the range of applications that it has. We look forward to hearing the next update from you. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Tom. See you again.
Thanks for joining us for the Executive Series.